Hi, good evening. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us for this virtual public information meeting for Revive I-70. I think that we're pretty set. I usually listen for the tones to see if we have people popping in at the last minute, but I think that we had everybody queued up and ready to go. So we will go ahead and jump into the presentation. My name is Mindy Peterson. I am with Parsons, the lead project development and design firm. I had public involvement at Parsons. And I'm joined by John LeBlond, who you also see on camera there with a nice wave. John is Deputy Project Manager for Revive I-70. So we're going to tag team tonight and share a lot of the information that we were able to share with the public in person last night at our public meeting. So we will get into a lot more details and we'll provide an overview. I will let you know this, of course, is an NDOT project, and we are joined by some NDOT members tonight and some members of Federal Highway as well. So we appreciate their time and we appreciate your time as well. We're going to start with just a little bit of housekeeping. So when we have these virtual meetings, it's a good opportunity for people to join us and get information and kind of do it on your own terms. So you don't have to get out. You can kind of multitask, do some other things that need to be done at this time in the evening, maybe get dinner started, whatever that might be, but you can keep an ear on what's going on. So just to avoid distractions, we do have everybody muted and we have cameras off except for presenters. So that's intentional. Wanted to let you know that, but please do communicate with us. So you'll see that chat function. I think most people are pretty familiar with the technology now, and most people are used to using it, but for most people, you'll find that chat bubble right at the top of your screen. If you have any comments, questions that you want to share with us at any time during the presentation, drop them right in the chat function. So the intent here is to really have the presentation, but if you have questions that we're able to go through and answer pretty quickly at the end of the presentation, we're happy to do so. If it's a more involved question that we're going to need to spend a little more time with, we have your contact information that you registered with, or you can provide your contact information and we'll get a response to you. So either of those will work for us tonight. And with that, we want to give you kind of an idea of what to expect. You're going to hear from us a bit of a reintroduction to Revive I-70. You may remember that we had meetings in January of this year, early this year, when we launched the project, and we were really giving folks an idea of what to expect from Revive I-70. We were introducing the project. We were telling you some of the things that we were looking at. And the project team has been busy since then. So we have a lot more information now. I told the folks last night, we've added a lot of meat to the bone now. And so we want to share more details on those improvements. We want to give you an idea of how this project is going to be delivered. We want to give you an idea of timeline as well. So these are all things that we will be walking through this evening. I'll also let you know here at the beginning that we have a lot of information, but we're going to share that in a concise manner and in a tight period of time. So we're not going to take a lot of your time this evening. We should get you in and out of here pretty quickly. And as I said, we will try to hit on any quick questions that you might have. So let's start with the project area. Revive I-70 includes planned improvements for a large corridor here. So we're really talking about a big chunk of I-70 in Wayne County. So you see us starting there west of Cambridge, sitting on the map, and we're going all the way over to the Indiana-Ohio state line. So this is a 20+ mile corridor. This is a corridor that I think folks know who drive it in the area. You know that it needs a little love and attention. It's that time. Pavement is nearing the end of its life. There are other improvements that we're looking at. So it is a big area, and NDOT is really taking a holistic look at improvements and figuring out how to best deliver those improvements and really making an investment in the area. So we want to give you an idea of where we are with the project and what we're talking about. When we talk about Revive I-70, we're talking about a project, bottom line, is going to improve I-70 in Wayne County. So we're talking about things like added travel lanes, wider bridges, improved bridges, all things that are going to improve your commute, improve traffic flow, and improve safety. So some of those improvements are outlined right there on your screen. We're talking a lot of bridges in this project area. We said it's a large project area, and we have 41 bridges that have improvements identified, and they kind of run the gamut. We have some really serious. We have a replacement of a bridge. We have some rehabs. We have some painting of bridges. John is going to walk through what those improvements look like. And we have a lot of widening. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that added capacity and what it's going to look like, and where we know for sure that an added lane is going to be going, and where we know that we are still identifying improvements. And then other things on the list as well. We have pavement replacement. We already talked about that. Pavement in this area really needs some attention. And so that is certainly something that our project team has been taking a look at. Drainage improvements, very important. And then just things that are really going to enhance the drive along this corridor. That's better lighting, signage, guardrail, those barriers. So all things that the team has been looking at. Also want to talk about where we are in the project. We're in the environmental and design stage. So we're kind of zooming out and looking at the big picture here. As I said, we started our work in earnest early this year. A lot of coordination is involved with a project of this size. This is a major project. As I said, it's a big investment. That coordination is happening with local, state, and federal officials. I see some of those local officials joining us tonight. I mentioned that we have some federal highway folks with us as well. So there is a tremendous amount of coordination that goes on with a project like this. Input from the public is important. So please don't shy away from sharing any feedback, using that chat function, or using comments sent to us through the website. That feedback is very important and helps inform the development of this project. Also want to talk about construction. That's a natural question. When we start talking about improvements like this, people want to know how soon, what's it going to look like? And so we'll cover that timeline, but really we're talking about construction starting late next year. So that's late 2024. And when we talk about this project, I've already said it several times, it's a large project area. We're talking about a lot of potential improvements. So it is a lot of ground to cover, and it's a large investment. So to deliver this contract in the best way, get that competition you want, get the interest that you want, and deliver it a way that's going to be that lessens the disruption as well. It has been divided into 3 contracts for project delivery. So if you follow your line there, we'll go back just to the map for just a minute. If you follow your line on the right there with the contract, you're going to see that that's where the first contract is. So when we talk about construction beginning next year, late next year, that's the starting point, really in the Richmond area. And John's going to let you know why that's the starting point. It's an area that does see more traffic, that also has more needs for improvement. So going to start there, and we have a good idea of what's going to be happening there. Then we go west and we spend some time there, and then we meet in the middle with contract 3. And then on that next slide, it gives you a good opportunity to see how that area lines up when we're talking about the 3 contracts. So if you want to flip that for me, Barry, if you don't care. So we have the 3 contracts, a lot of information on the screen here, but I will tell you everything we're touching tonight, everything we're talking about is already on the project website. So you're going to find that at revivei70.com. So when you say, what are the limits? What are we talking about? How far do the contracts go? When are these contracts going to let? When can construction begin? All of that information is there. And the last thing I'll say before I hand it off, for contract 1, we have a really good idea about the improvements that we're talking about. And these are the things that John's going to talk about in detail. So we are talking about that very important 3rd travel lane, which is going to make a big difference for commutes. We are talking about interchange modifications, and we're talking about that pavement replacement. And that, when you talk about pavement replacement, that's a big deal. That's taking it down to the soil, replacing it, making some really serious improvements there. Contracts 2 and 3, we showed you the areas. We don't have all of those improvements identified yet, still a work in progress, but we started with contract 1, really nailed down those improvements, and the other ones are items that we're still identifying and working on. And with that, it's a perfect segue and handoff to John, who's going to walk you through the planned improvements.
Yes, thank you, Mindy. Barry, next slide, please. So anticipated improvements. Like Mindy said, we have a pretty good idea what's going on contract 1. So we are going to replace the pavement within that section. We are going to provide an additional travel lane in the median in each direction, which will be a great improvement in capacity and mobility. We are going to be widening all those bridges to the inside to add that additional travel lane. And then we are going to do some interchange improvements at 35 and 40. And there's a couple of reasons why that eastern section is the contract one, and it's because the US 40 interchange is about at its life expectancy. An upgrade is needed to help remove some of those loop ramps to improve flow and mobility. But also there is a huge grade raise from 227 to US 40, where all the trucks in the area are making that big, large climb at a decreased speed compared to normal passenger vehicles. So that third lane will really help capacity mobility when vehicles are traveling up that grade raise, as well as we see an uptick in truck traffic around the Richmond area, and that is why that section is going first. Barry, next slide, please. So this is what it's going to look like currently. If you look at on the right side of your screen, you've got the pickup truck and the little red car. That's currently what's out there now with the 2 lanes. On the left-hand side is the big box truck and then the white passenger car. How we are going to incorporate the third lane is with the travel lane that you see on the inside in the widened shoulder that will be separated by concrete median barrier. So right now that is all grass, and we're going to fill that in. So the goal would be of this project was to minimize disruption to the outside, and therefore it would minimize the need for right-of-way. So we're going to hold those outside edges of existing pavement and work our way inward. This is how we accomplish buying very minimal right-of-way. There's a couple pieces of right-of-way that we have to look at for culverts, and a little bit near the US 35 that does not disrupt any businesses. It does not disrupt homeowners. It doesn't take any relocations. So there was a lot of thought process in making sure that let's try and meet the goal of added capacity and safety without too much disruption to the folks that live around there. Next slide, please. So we already talked about the added travel lane. It's going to be a lane in each direction. It will be in the median. Contract 2 and 3, those are still being analyzed for the best course of action. But for what you just saw, that is what we are moving forward with contract 1. Bridge improvements. There's a lot of bridges, like Mindy said. This is for the overall contract, over 40 bridges within the project. Almost all the mainline bridges on I-70 are going to be widened. We are looking at replacing a few of them, but for the most part, we are going to widen them, and we'll talk a little bit more about actual bridge improvements on the next slide. So again, very similar to what we saw with the road. The top part is the existing bridges. We've got 2 lanes in each direction. As you can see, is that wide gap in the median on the roadway section. That's what's typically filled in with grass. And then at the bottom of the screen, we are going to fill that in with additional lane in each direction, a widened shoulder, and then separated by concrete median barrier. This is what you typically see in a more urbanized setting. If you go from Dayton to Columbus, you'll see this typical section. If you are getting close to Indianapolis or on 465, you also see this. There has been an emphasis on improved safety along the interstate, and the concrete median barrier is really doing advantages to keeping vehicular on their existing roadbed and not crossing over to the opposite side. So the barrier is definitely an added safety bonus for an improvement on this project. So bridge improvements, we've got quite a few replacements, a lot of rehabs, overlays, and preventive maintenance. So what the heck does all this mean? The best way to describe this is, bridges are somewhat like a car, where your car needs maintenance. You've got to rotate the tires, you got to provide oil change. You just can't buy it and be done for the rest of its life. You have to maintain it and make sure that it stays in working order. And bridges are the same way. So when we're talking about preventative maintenance, if you look at a picture on the right-hand screen, you will see the beams. Those are that light baby blue color. Over time, those will begin to rust. And so we do have to go in there. We'll have to sandblast the existing paint, have to sandblast the rust, and then we'll paint over it. And that just helps keep those beams going a little bit longer. The deck overlay is very similar. Over time, there will be porous areas within the deck of the actual bridge. So that's that top flat part that you're driving on. And we will go in, we will improve the deck, patch if there's any holes, and then put a new overlay, which is basically a sealant to preserve or extend the long life of the bridge itself. And then for the major rehabs, we'll be widening to the inside. Next slide, please. I apologize. So at the US 35 interchange and the US 40, we are going to be doing improvements. Again, these are two major reasons why that eastern end is within contract number one and the first one to go out to be bid and constructed. So the improvements there, most of all, you have driven this section of corridor. And if you are going westbound on I-70 and you want to go southbound on 35, as soon as you go underneath that bridge, you have to jet off to the right, slam on your brakes, slow down into that tight curve. We understand that, back when the interstate was built, there was a lot fewer cars. They also didn't move as fast. So there's been a lot of changes that have occurred that now we need to extend that deceleration distance. And that's what we've done here. And this is what you're going to see in orange for the top part of I-70. We're going to extend that deceleration distance. So with westbound exit to northbound 35 and southbound, we will actually create its own collector distributor system. So what that means is it will be separated from I-70 with a concrete median barrier. So once you have made the decision to get off on 35, you will not be able to cross back onto I-70 and vice versa. So we've eliminated some weaving movements there as well, which is nice and safer, but also extend that deceleration distance, which will definitely improve the safety for this interchange. For the eastbound side, we understand there's also some weaving issues between the two loop ramps of the on and off ramps. We have extended also that acceleration distance. We would have liked to do more with that area, but it just was not in the scope of work or the funding for this project. So that may be down the road later. But right now, the interchange itself is handling quite well within the capacity at a proper level of service, meaning that the interchange can handle the traffic well and still keep the mobility. But these are just some minor things that help improve safety. So next one we're going to look at is US 40. Now this one needed to be, it had to be an upgrade. We are completely reconfiguring this interchange. There is a lot of traffic at US 40 entering and exiting. There are a lot of trucks that come into Richmond area from this interchange. So those tight loop ramps, we really have to slow vehicular traffic down. It is extremely banked. And then folks have to merge onto US 40. With this new diamond interchange and roundabouts, we have improved safety as well as capacity and mobility on this as well. We have extended the acceleration distances. We have extended the deceleration distances. We have also improved the intersections. We looked at, instead of the roundabouts, could we go to a signalized intersection? And that just doesn't handle the traffic as well as the roundabouts. There is a lot of truck traffic, and the longer that vehicles have to stand on the ramp, the more queuing or backing up on that ramp. With the roundabout, it will allow more free-flowing movements. But also the benefits and advantages of the roundabouts are we are providing pedestrian access. So both sides of US 40 will have sidewalks. There's been a big initiative where a lot of towns and cities in Indiana to have more pedestrian mobility within those cities. And with this option right here, we can provide that pedestrian mobility and then possibly work with the city to extend that into Richmond. So that's a great aspect as well. Next slide, please. So additional improvements, Mindy has already covered some of these. We're going to do all new interchange lighting, additional signage. We're going to replace all the signage that's out there. All the pavement will be replaced within contract one. It is at the life expectancy of the pavement. We know that all the residents and traveling public on I-70 are tired of having INDOT go out there and patch it, just as much as INDOT is tired of going out there and patching it every summer. So this will be going out there, replacing all the pavement. We are going to put an extended pavement life out there. So it will perform about twice as long as normal pavement, which is good. That way we get in, we do the work, and INDOT doesn't have to come back for a very long time. Then, like Mindy said, drainage improvements. A lot of the culverts are original to when the interstate was built. They're rusted out, or maybe they are slightly undersized. We will go in there and we will replace all of those or align them That way, there's a whole new drainage system to accommodate all the brand new pavement. And then we'll be upgrading the barrier and guardrail systems, just like I mentioned earlier. Providing that concrete median barrier down the center of the roadway really provides that additional safety between the eastbound, westbound movements. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Mindy to talk about what's next.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you, John. So John covered a lot of information about what's happening, and we've talked about the timeline, but sometimes it's just helpful to see it in this form in front of you. I do want to flag a couple of things on here. Obviously, you see us at that touch point with the public meeting in the summer. So already coming up this fall, we expect to re-engage. You'll hear from us again, and we'll have a public hearing. That's going to be just a little bit different than the public meeting, whether that's the virtual meeting you've joined tonight or whether it's the in-person meeting that we had at IU East last night. So a hearing, you get a lot of the same information as far as detail and where we are in the progress. And of course, we'll be further down the road. So we'll let you know more specifics, more at that point in time. But when we have the hearing, we'll also have a formal comment period that's part of that hearing. So people who attend the hearing can sign up to speak. They'll have a couple of minutes or so. They'll have a microphone. We'll listen to all of those comments. Responses to those comments will come in the final environmental document. So all of those will be reviewed and responded to by the project team. And then we mentioned it's early next year already that that this contract will be letting. We actually are reaching out to contractors now. We have an industry forum planned for next month, and that's really just to let folks in this industry know what's happening. We have a major project coming. We want to get folks interested, and we want to see what ideas that they bring to the table. As far as what is happening now and what you need to know, if you want to flip for me there, Barry. John touched on these things, but it's always it's a good idea to reinforce some of these things and just call attention to, I think, some of the things that are happening that make a lot of sense, smart things that are happening. That third lane for contract one that we know is going to be happening, third lane in each direction, that's a big deal. You're talking about 8+ miles of the corridor that we know is going to have that third lane, which is adding 50% capacity. That's going to do a lot to alleviate that congestion, to help keep traffic flowing. That's really going to be a game changer. So not only wanted to point that out again, but what John touched on earlier, that's a lot of improvement to happen in an area that's already existing. It's making smart use of what is already there. So we're not taking homes, we're not taking businesses, we're using that inside grass median, and we're doing the widening there. John talked through the pictures earlier. So a major project with very minimal impacts. We're not taking any homes or businesses for this project. Very limited right away. We're just talking about some slivers here or there, and some of that is temporary. So it is unusual to have a project of this magnitude with so little impact on right of way because of the way that it's being developed. So that's a big deal. And if additional travel lanes are part of contracts 2 and 3, it will be the same situation. That widening will happen to the inside there as well. Another smart thing that John talked about as well is all of the bridges now, all bridges that carry I-70 traffic are being widened now. So even though we are still identifying those specific improvements for contracts 2 and 3, the bridges are ready to go, whether that added lane comes with this project or whether it comes soon down the road. We already mentioned the start of construction and when to expect that. Other thing that I wanted to mention is travel. That's a big deal. Maintenance of traffic is going to get a lot of attention with this project. We know that people rely on I-70, they rely on it for their commute. So we need to make sure that you're able to get around, get to homes, businesses, carry on with all of your normal activities during construction. 2 lanes is what we'll keep open during peak times, and most times we'll have 2 lanes open. There will be some closures and some minimizing, tightening of lanes, that sort of thing during the weekend, overnight. But the goal is to try to keep those 2 lanes that you currently have open just as much as possible. One thing that is not on here, but I wanted to flag quickly. John talked about all of the improvements at US 40 and how that's really going to make a difference in how that interchange functions. It's very easy sometimes when people hear roundabouts, there tends to be a natural oh no, what's going on? I'm not sure. I'm not used to it. And I just wanted to flag a couple of things. One being that roundabouts have been around for a very long time now. They have been tried, true, tested, proven, all of that for decades. They have been around, and you don't have to go very far to find many roundabouts successfully in use. We know Carmel has a ton of them. The reason why so many people are using roundabouts now is because they work so well. They do a great job of keeping that traffic moving. So flow is there, but while the traffic is still flowing, it also calms traffic. And so it naturally slows it down a bit. And just because of the way they function, you are seeing a major reduction, about an 80% reduction in serious crashes. So big time improvements to traffic flow, big time improvements to safety. And there is always a little bit of angst and a little bit of worry about people getting used to it. There's going to be a tremendous amount of education on the front end, making sure that folks, nobody is surprised. They know how the roundabouts function, they know how to use those, and they're ready to go when those are up and running. So just wanted to flag that as well. And with that, I wanted to make sure that you knew how to follow us and to follow our progress. The website really is a great resource. It's revivei70.com. As I said, the presentation from last night, we had a lot of boards. It's a good chance to take a closer look at some of the improvements that John walked through. All of the boards are on the website as well. We have a comment form that you can download. So it's a great resource. We have a long list of FAQs, some good information. We'll update the project website as the project develops. So it's a good idea to check it out. While you're on there, it's very quick and easy. Sign up for email updates, or if you prefer a text update, we're going to keep you informed. So when we get to those public hearings this fall, we're going to let you know that the public hearings are coming, and you'll always kind of have also a good look at what we're doing behind the scenes. Social media is a great place to follow us as well. Facebook and Twitter, we're active on both of those. We actually had a video crew out last night that was talking to some of our project team members, and we'll put together a series of short videos, little short snippets, a minute and a half or less, that will give you a nice snapshot of, what are the bridge improvements that we're talking about? What are the improvements in general? What's going to happen with US 40? What's happening at 35? So we'll have some short videos that give you a good sense of not only what to expect, but a little bit of flavor of meeting the project team and knowing what to expect on that front. So that's a good thing to track as well. And finally, just wanted to point out, comments are very important to us. I know I saw the one question in chat, but if anybody has any specific questions, comments, and you want to throw them in chat tonight, that is more than fine. You don't have to. The comment form that we had available last night for the public meeting is also available on the website. Again, that's revivei70.com. Download it, complete it. You can upload it, or if you don't want to fill out the entire comment form, you can simply drop your comment to us by using the general form on the website. So share your feedback. We are asking for comments associated with this meeting by September 8th. There's nothing magic about that, except when we have public meetings, we do have to give a period that's where we're going to wrap up all the comments associated with those particular meetings. So your comments are always welcome. We always want them, but for comments associated with this round of public meetings, please do reach out and share your comments with us by September 8th. And you're going to hear a lot about that if you follow us on social media. You'll see those reminders, and you'll see us pointing you to those meeting materials and comment form online. And last thing I want to let you know, for specific contact information, if you have questions about this project, we do utilize INDOT4U, which is a great system, super smart. INDOT really does it right when it comes to customer service. Anything that touches INDOT, it's all going through INDOT4U. They have a great system. They track it. They're going to close those cases. So if you had feedback, inquiry, it's probably going to find its way to the project team, but you'll get a response and they'll close it out. So use that contact information for INDOT4U, but please do reference Revive I-70 while you do so. And with that, we're going to that's the conclusion of the presentation. I'd like to thank you one more time for joining us. We will keep the chat function open for a couple of minutes to see if anybody has any questions that we can provide quick answers to. And then in the meantime, John, do you want to weigh in? I know Jeff asked about pavement and whether we know yet if that's going to be concrete or asphalt.
Yeah, so this is a design build project, meaning that we will do to a certain point and then the contractor will come in. And with that, we are going to provide some flexibility for a extended life concrete option and an extended life asphalt option. So again, as Minnie talked about, we broke this contract into, or this whole project into 3 different contracts to try and bring some competitive bids. We're also going to do that with the pavement. At the end of the day, the winning design bid team will determine if it's going to go asphalt or concrete. I hope I answered your question, Jeff.
Perfect. And then we had a question from Matthew, who was asking about items. So that's the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, asking about coordination. Yes, the short answer is yes, and I'll let John expand on that answer. But Matthew was asking specifically about coordination that's happening. And as I mentioned, I didn't list the agencies, but there is a tremendous amount of coordination with any project, but especially a project of this size that happens federal, state, local level. And that is, of course, where some of our focus is on the environmental side, make sure that we're talking to all of the right players along the way. So John, anything that you wanted to throw in or add to that response?
Yes, also as part of the permit process, everyone is aware of the reservoir. Thank you for calling that out. We will have to have a spill containment plan. NDOT requires this on all projects, but specifically ones with the reservoir that towns and cities may be using take a little higher level notice of attention. And so that will be handled within the NEPA document and the scope of services that will require the contractor to follow certain rules, but also through the permit process as well.
Perfect. And Mary was asking about the sidewalks. So the sidewalks that you mentioned at US 40, what's the game plan? Is that really looking more toward future connectivity, John? Or she was wondering where are they going to start? Where are they going to end? And probably wondering a little bit about where they get you.
Yeah, Barry, do you mind hopping back to slide number 19? That way we can see a visual with an aerial behind there. Our project limits go from NDOT right away to NDOT right away. Yeah, there you go. So what you see on the screen about to just a little bit beyond the Indiana-Ohio state line, not quite to the firework entrance. And then before you start getting into town, we will provide sidewalks to the whole corridor for this project. I do know that there are other projects down the road on US 40 that they may incorporate additional sidewalks, but I think it'd be really cool to see that go all the way into town. But for right now, what you see in orange is where the location of the sidewalk along both sides will start and stop.
Perfect. And, a lot of times when these projects come about, we're keeping an eye on, where things are headed in the future. And even if plans are not concrete and set in stone today, we want to offer opportunities to have future coordination and see what possibilities
Yeah.
exist there. So a lot of this is kind of looking forward when we talk about that connectivity.
Yeah, it's better to get in and add those facilities now while we're doing all of it than sometimes it is to come back and you kind of destroy things as you try to improve at the same time. So that's exactly right. Thank you, Mindy.
Mhm. Perfect. Yeah, Mary commented, yeah, so I think it helps to see that. She did comment, it seems like a bit of an odd place, which I think that when people think of the interchange and the way it currently is designed, it may pop up and seem a little odd, but I think that it's going to function so much differently when it's redesigned and the improvements are made and the roundabouts are in place. So it's going to be much different than what it is today, and is not going to seem probably nearly as out of place at that point in time. All right. Any additional questions, comments, anything that we can help answer while we are still here? And if not, again, we just want to thank you very much for your time. Always appreciate people who are willing to take time away from the evening to learn about what's happening in their community, and that's a big deal. So we appreciate it very much. Oh, estimated time frame from start to finish on contract 1, John. So starting construction late next year and
And you're really going to see stuff getting moved in 25 and 26. Now, we probably will have, we're still figuring out the exact time sets, but most likely a major completion will be done in 26. And then into 27, pavement work will be done, but they may have to come back and do a little grading, do a little seeding, just because you can't get grass to grow in November. And that may need to happen in May or June. But for the most part, you're going to see work in 25 and 26 for contract number 1.
anything else that we might be able to answer before we call it a wrap and we let you get about with your evening? Okay, well, don't hesitate if you need to reach us. The website is a great resource, and NDOT for You is always a great resource that is available on any project. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a fantastic evening. Appreciate it.